people who aren't in the public health realm at Agnes Scott could find a way to plug in there too, especially if you're interested in travel. So I have business cards I'd be glad to hand out, but we really are looking for some people who might want to do that.
So I'm also a CWS tutor, and I know I want to write children's cartoons, but I don't really know what the steps would be to get there. So how would you both suggest like mapping out a plan, or is it wise to have a plan?
I have no plan. I'm probably not the person to ask about a plan. You know, with something like that that's really specific, it might be good to try to find other people who are in that field and who can talk to you about what it takes to become a successful cartoonist.
What do you mean by children's cartoons? You mean in a digital medium or for books or?
On digital media for like animation.
Animation. Girl, we need to talk.
Okay.
We will talk after this. Because I actually have several graphic designers on my team, and so you're sort of an artist too? Do you do?
I'm more of a writer. I can do art, but I'm not particularly good at it.
Okay. Yeah, let me think about that. There might be some opportunities for you to, meet some or shadow some people at Georgia Public Broadcasting.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure. What's next?
That's an example of a job that any kind of publishing and writing to deadline experience, volunteer or paid, would be excellent for that.
Okay.
And as well as, of course, if you can get involved in anything that is actually doing that, like the Cartoon Network or something like that. But I think that something like the profile is absolutely invaluable for things like this, because it shows that you could meet deadlines, you could gather information, you could put stories together, you could create items that other people would read and that would be important efforts in communication. So all of those things that we have here are really excellent for
Absolutely, and it gives you clips. It gives you something concrete to hand to a prospective employer and say, this is an example of my work, which is hard to come by when you're just getting started.
And in the digital media, more and more, people aren't asking for resumes. If you're a talent, they ask for your reel, and same for designers and writers. So if you have any storyboards, put that on a website or scan some of those and send them as pictures to employers. That's something to have something tangible, especially for what you want to do that you can hand off. I think would be very wise. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a new tutor this year, and I'm an English major as well. But because of my international background, something I'm interested is on how non-English native speakers could pursue those English-related careers. How would you suggest, or do you have any colleagues or co-workers who are from international backgrounds?
A bunch.
Yeah, big time.
A bunch. CDC is full of people from other countries, and I think that most of them have had to master English if they're going to work here and in that field, and for a lot of scientists, it's a very technical sort of English that they need to learn. But I think that there is that expectation that you would be able to function in English in a lot of these careers. Not in every one. It would depend on what the person wanted to do.
Do you think that the international background is an advantage in some ways?
Absolutely. I think it can be really, really helpful, and I think that we do so much work in other countries at CDC, and people from those countries and who are familiar with those cultures are often called on to advise other people who are preparing materials or who are going to work in those areas. And remember when the earthquake happened in Haiti, and we were doing emergency response for that, and we put out a call to people who are native to Haiti to help with that. We do things in a lot of other languages a lot of times, especially for emergency response, and we maintain a list of people at CDC who speak other languages, and it's a huge number of languages. So we just got a lot of things done in Urdu and Farsi, and so I think that having those skills is valuable, and it's something that makes that person unique there, and kind of, it might be outside of what they do on a day-to-day basis, but it's something else that they can contribute to is really important.
And I think also, you know, the culture of many businesses is cultural, you know, so they want a diverse workforce and diverse personnel. And also, you never know who you're going to run into, and there be some sort of cultural divide. For instance, I had a woman call me yesterday who is an African princess. I am not kidding. And we had a great conversation, but I noticed in dealing with her that I really would have liked to know from somebody that I work with in advance how to interact with her, because I was talking over her, and you know, there was just, the conversation wasn't as relaxed and natural, you know, as it is, you know, with me and you now. She's from a completely different culture. I come to the table with no knowledge of that, so I think having other, I would say, people as assets on your team who can help you understand different cultures, especially when, you know, our mission is to learn other cultures and disseminate, you know, programming about other cultures. At GPB, we get to interact with a lot of people from different cultures, and that's true in any organization.
Just out of curiosity, I think there's a trend now in colleges and universities toward multimodal communication. So I'm just wondering if you have had any opportunities in working with institutions in higher education.
Not really. We do a little bit with study abroad, and helping schools advise students who are doing study abroad, but not in the way that you're.
Yeah, I would probably say the same. We joke at GPB that our viewers come to us at birth, and they leave at about 7, and then they come back to us at 55. So we're working on bridging that gap, Sue. But you know, obviously I get some exposure to higher education just because of the segment that I'm doing, but that's a very unique situation. I would say the same. A lot of it's business to business, or you know, I actually see a fair amount of folks who come in just to pitch a show, and they're just ordinary people from the community who have great ideas. And there's a lot of that.
So what are some of the myths about getting a job and succeeding in a job that you'd like to negate? You know, some of the truisms that people say that you think are maybe not always true.
Ooh, follow the pecking order? No, sirree, Bob. Not at all true.
Can you explain what that means? Because not everybody
Sure.
will understand that expression.
Exactly. See, there we go. So if you think of that there's a hierarchy in business, and everybody should start at the bottom and wait very patiently to ascend up that ladder in a workplace, I found that to not be the case. Especially, you have to be sort of aggressive in a lot of ways. And every reward that I've gotten in my current position has been because I've asked for something. So it really is sort of an ask and you shall receive mentality that I think I can attribute wholeheartedly to everything that I've been able to do in broadcasting. So yeah, sitting back and watching others, you know, blow past you is not a good feeling, because you want to be up there racing in that race too. That's one thing I've learned. What about you?
Well, I think that is very, very true, and that you have to be able to toot your own horn and to be able to talk about what you're good at and not be shy about that. I don't know that it's a myth, but I really do believe that who you know helps you get jobs, and you know, I think that's pretty well known. But I think it's how good you are that helps you keep jobs and helps you advance. And so, so I think you do need to work your network and take advantage of the connections that you have, but then you have to work really hard and prove yourself.
So I feel like sort of our generation, there's a lot of pressure to
And kind of, it might be outside of what they do on a day-to-day basis, but it's something else that they can contribute to employment.
And I think also, you know, the culture of many businesses is cultural, you know, so they want a diverse workforce and diverse personnel. And also, you never know who you're going to run into, and there be some sort of cultural divide. For instance, I had a woman call me yesterday who is an African princess. I am not kidding. And we had a great conversation, but I noticed in dealing with her that I really would have liked to know from somebody that I work with in advance how to interact with her, because I was talking over her, And, you know, there was just, the conversation wasn't as relaxed and natural, you know, as it is, you know, with me and you now. She's from a completely different culture. I come to the table with no knowledge of that. So I think having other, I would say, people as assets on your team who can help you understand different cultures, especially when, you know, our mission is to learn other cultures and disseminate, you know, programming about other cultures. At GPB, we get to interact with a lot of people from different cultures. And that's true in any organization.
Just out of curiosity, I think there's a trend now in colleges and universities toward multimodal communication. So I'm just wondering if you have had any opportunities in working with institutions in higher education.
Not really. We do a little bit with study abroad and helping schools advise students who are doing study abroad, but not in the way that you're.
Yeah, I would probably say the same. We joke at GPB that our viewers come to us at birth and they leave at about 7, and then they come back to us at 55. So we're working on bridging that gap, Sue. But you know, obviously I get some exposure to higher education just because of the segment that I'm doing, but that's a very unique situation. I would say the same. A lot of it's business to business, or, you know, I actually see a fair amount of folks who come in just to pitch a show, and they're just ordinary people from the community who have great ideas. And there's a lot of that.
So what are some of the myths about getting a job and succeeding in a job that you'd like to negate? You know, some of the truisms that people say that you think are maybe not always true.
Ooh, follow the pecking order? No, sirree, Bob. Not at all true.
Can you explain what that means? Because not everybody
Sure.
will understand that expression.
Exactly. See, there we go. So if you think of that there's a hierarchy in business and everybody should start at the bottom and wait very patiently to ascend up that ladder in a workplace, I found that to not be the case. Especially, you have to be sort of aggressive in a lot of ways. And every reward that I've gotten in my current position has been because I've asked for something. So it really is sort of an ask and you shall receive mentality that I think I can attribute wholeheartedly to everything that I've been able to do in broadcasting. So yeah, sitting back and watching others, you know, blow past you is not a good feeling because you want to be up there racing in that race too. That's one thing I learned. What about you?
Well, I think that is very, very true, and that you have to be able to toot your own horn and to be able to talk about what you're good at and not be shy about that. I don't know that it's a myth, but I really do believe that who you know helps you get jobs, and you know, I think that's pretty well known. But I think it's how good you are that helps you keep jobs and helps you advance. And so, so I think you do need to work your network and take advantage of the connections that you have, but then you have to work really hard and prove yourself.
So I feel like sort of our generation, there's a lot of pressure to pick a major and dive into that major very quickly. So I'm wondering if either one of you had any sort of anxiety in going into the workforce after you graduated college and sort of feeling like you had to pick a certain path and sort of that would determine where you would end up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I had anxiety about going into the workforce because I thought all I knew how to do was read books and write papers about them. I wasn't sure how to translate that into a practical skill. And I still love to read books. For me, it hasn't been so true that those early choices kept me from any opportunities. I had major anxiety, though, about becoming a federal employee. Major anxiety about that because it felt like, because I had been at CDC for 7 years before I became a federal employee. So I was there as a contractor, and it felt really temporary for that whole time. And I knew all these people who, you know, started at CDC when they were 20 and now they're 50 and they're retiring, and I thought, oh my God, that's what's going to happen to me. I'm going to be a bureaucrat. And And so I almost couldn't go to the new employee orientation because I felt like I was getting tied down to that. And so I had to remind myself a lot, I can make a different choice at any time that I want to, and that, if at some point I decide I don't want to retire as a civil servant, that I can make a choice to do something different.
I think that's true for public broadcasting too. I am without a doubt the youngest person in the company, and I get picked on because of it a little bit. And there is sort of that impression that, if you're going to go work in public media, that's where you're going to die. You're going to become a dinosaur and you're not going to move on to do anything else, which is really sad and tragic and not at all the case. I think as long as you bear in mind that you forge your own future and you can stay or go, and the moment that you become disengaged and disinterested, it's time to continue charting your course, and I think that will keep you on track. As far as the major, I knew immediately that I was going to be an English major, and I wanted to be an English major. The biggest issue was my mother did not understand, well, you're going to write papers or you're going to teach for a living? I think we still have to work as a team on that barrier, or that myth out there that you go to a liberal arts school to become a teacher or something like that, when really you're starting with a deeper, more permanent core of skills that are going to translate in a wider way, in a vast array of jobs, whereas others in other situations might be learning very deeply one line of work where you have the world at your fingertips, truly. So you'll be all right, whatever you decide to do. Have you picked your major?
I'm a public health major, actually,
Okay.
but I'm very interested in writing a material here, so.
We should talk.
I think we I just want to say, how many of you are English majors or thinking of being English majors? Good. Well, an English major, people make a lot of jokes about English majors.
Oh yeah.
But really, first of all, English majors are widely recognized as being very intelligent and capable. And second of all, a lot of companies, law schools, medical schools, and other entities like that want English majors because they know you can write, they know you can speak, they know you can communicate, they know you can do research, they know you're analytical. And of course, other majors prepare you in that way too. But I'm just saying there's a prejudice against English that is not founded. And I see, I talked to an alumna the other day who was an English major, and she is a bank president. So she didn't have to major in econ to be a bank president. She was an English major. And she said that it was the skills that she learned as an English major that got her to that position.
Yeah. I mean, when I say I graduated thinking I know how to write books and I'm reading books and that's it, I think I was really selling it short. I hadn't thought about it fully, and I've never regretted majoring in English at all. And I think that I've also never regretted going to a liberal arts college because, I mean, I work in a scientific organization now, and there was no public health when I was here. There was hardly any business when I was here, but I wouldn't have done that anyway because I came in here knowing I was going to be an English major, and I minored in French, and I took almost all humanities courses. So it is kind of funny that I've ended up where I have. But I think because of that liberal arts background, I've learned it. I've learned it on my own and on the job, and I enjoy the intellectual challenge of working at CDC because, there's always something new.
Can you talk about how do you overcome the challenges during the transitional periods from graduating in college to entering the workforce?
The challenges, like how are you going to live and
Yeah, something like that. And also like how do you apply the skills or experiences you have from college into the workforce and more of the more practical social.
That's deep.
That is. That is.
Let's see. I was talking about my mom who's like, "What are you gonna do with this degree?" And then immediately graduate and go move in with my parents for 9 months. That was really great. Good for my self-esteem. But I think the best thing you can do is stay engaged, whatever that means. For me, just applying for jobs kept me mentally stimulated for 30 days, and then I got tired of that. So I took the internship with a publishing company, and that really lit the fire under me again to, you know, figure out what it is I wanted to do. Do I need to go back to television? And I did that for 3 months before I found my perfect job. And I think the only thing that got me through that time of uncertainty and, you know, personal self-reflection was just staying connected with something and remembering what exactly, you know, it is that I'm in for. I'm an Agnes Scott educated woman, and I'm going to find the right path for me. And I'm not going to settle, because I think I actually read a quote today that the amount of time you allow yourself to wait for something is, you know, directly showing your value of that thing you're waiting for. So if it's the right first job for you, you know, take something just to keep you stimulated in the meantime, and leave it the second you find the perfect opportunity. And that worked for me, and it sounds like that's sort of what you did.
It is. I mean, at the very beginning, I think I had a few temp jobs. I mean, you know, just whatever. And I lived with, I think, 4 other people who had also just graduated, and we're all in this little house over off of North Decatur Road, and so you just kind of scrape it all together and make it work.
It's a humble existence.
It is, definitely is. And I think especially when, you know, I had been supported by my parents, and my standard of living dropped pretty drastically there at the very beginning. And so that part is hard, but it's also really good, because then you know, I can look back and say, I did this. You know, I accomplished this. And so I think it's good to persevere through that, and to have some times like that, so it helps to sharpen your focus and to give you a chance to figure out what you want. So I think especially if you're in that position of you're graduating and you don't have a path, you don't know what it is that you want, that it's a good way to help get you to that point of figuring it out.
And if it sounds like it's too much to bear, don't worry, you will not be the same person in 3, 5, 10 years that you are now. And even though I feel very much the same, I realize how different I am as a result of going through some of those experiences. So.
And if you make a wrong choice, then you make a different choice.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you haven't done anything permanent.
That seems smart.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah, sorry I came in kind of late,
Okay.
but I really loved like reading your bios because they were really interesting. Because you had English and then another interest that you managed to kind of keep in there. That was really cool. I'm really conflicted between doing like a science, biology, environmental science thing, and then my English, history, women's studies. How do you guys reconcile that? That's a lot to do as like a quadruple major. So.
Yeah, quadruple major seems a little ambitious.
Is that allowed by the registrar's office? I have to wonder. Tell us what those focuses are again.
Yeah.
Well, basically just like having a science focus. Like I know,
Okay.
I don't know many like English creative writing and then biology double majors. Is that possible? Did you guys try doing that?
I would love to read one of your bioterm papers, just saying. I'm sure it's very well written.
Well, you know.
Yeah. So I never took a science or a math class on this campus. I had AP credit.
Yep.
In calculus and biology, and I didn't. I remember Linda Hubert called me into her office during first year orientation and said, "We don't know what to do with you," because I had science and math AP credit, and I had over 700 on the SAT and the verbal, and she's like, "We don't understand you." And I said, "Well, my school, I went to a small town high school, my school offered these AP classes, but I love English. I want to be an English major." And so I might not be the best person to answer that question, because I was pretty focused on the humanities. But I think in my life, I kind of juggle both of those things, and there's a lot about science that I find very interesting, and I think that they can serve each other, and that, I mean, I think it makes it kind of interesting if you do those two really different things and serve both of your interests. And have you read the book The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks?
Yes, we had to for our class.
Oh, okay, that's great. I mean, I think that's a great example of really wonderful writing and really interesting science, and they come together and I loved that book. And I hate reading nonfiction. And I love
There's
books.
also several different master's programs in science writing that are very interesting. And there's a whole pathway in science journalism that we're looking for people to go that road because there's so much going on in science and it needs to be communicated. And so if you're interested in both of those things, that's a really great way to go.
There's science journalism, that's a great
Yeah.
point. There's also editing scientific journals and things like that. So there are a lot of careers that would really involve those.
I know at GPB, our education department right now is working on a digital textbook, and they've had some very special writer types in working on the science and other elements of that. And you know, I think what we understand as liberal arts people is that, you know, these worlds are not so far apart at all. You know, you can write about science and you understand the science of writing. So you really just have to find a way to apply those things that in a way that satisfies you, like what Kelly was saying.
There's a lot of bad scientific writing.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
truth.
And so people who can write clearly and effectively about science, read an article in a journal sometimes. There's some that are just mind-boggling, and they don't have to be. It's not that the subject matter is so hard, they're just written in a really confusing way.
It's important to do what you love, and I think that even if you don't know that, it eventually becomes clear to you that you really love one particular discipline or certain disciplines as opposed to others.
And if you really love two, I think honor both of those things.
Other questions?
Okay, one more question.
Sure.
So I have a question about internships. You both talked about as being very important. And over the summer, I was applying to a lot of different internships, and then I got a job which was very different from my field, but I felt that it was more important to take the job than to pursue the internships which were more directed towards what I want to do. So how would you balance that? What do you think is more favorable?
So the job wasn't in your field, but it was paid. Is that
Yes,
the
and I
point?
enjoyed doing it.
Right. I don't think that's still really valuable. You know, you have to be practical. So a job that pays you.
What year are
that can mean a
you?
lot.
I'm a junior.
You're a junior. You've got some time.
Yeah.
If you were a senior, I might have said, "Ooh, see if you can work out both." You know, because you hate to. There's always an opportunity cost in life. You know, and this is part of what you're learning moving forward. But that's not to say that sometimes you can't have both things. You just have to be really good at scheduling to get it done. And being a junior, you know, this is prime time, and next year will be for that internship, the internship that's going to make a difference in your career track, and it's probably going to be unpaid because most internships are, but it's experience for the taking for sure.
I did an internship for academic credit during the semester. So I didn't have to sacrifice that summer job time.
Mhm.
I was able to work it into my course load, and I was in a similar position to what you are, that I had a lot of credits. I think I technically started as a sophomore, but I stayed the whole 4 years, so I could do things like you know, do an internship or do an independent study and have time to do that.
Did Black Cat already happen?
Yes. A couple weeks ago, I was eating in that Lebanese place down the road, and my waitress was from Scott, and she said it was Black Cat night. I was like, oh, and you're here. And Lawrence is heaven.
Writer JP.
Oh, bravo!
Thank you.
Bravo! What was the theme?
We did a retro superhero theme, and it was more of like a dark comedy.
Nice. We did, I think, the first at the time musical ever known at JP. It was called Alice in Agnes Land. It was pretty bizarre. Did you all?
We did junior production.